Hey everyone, send you an early morning crafting lesson for writing today. Um, I was actually looking through some Naomi Shihab Nye poems today, and I wanted to do a little lesson on what it means to tune your ears to the world. And what I mean by that is she uses eavesdropping a lot in her poems. She talks about the things that she hears and she writes them down. So I wanted us to do a little bit of looking at some poems that she's done. I want you to pick out a mentor text. And I want you to do some thinking around it. So I've shared my screen with you guys for the express purpose that I want you to see a couple of these poems. I'm going to read them both real quick for our heart, and then we'll read it for our head and notice some of the things that she's doing here. So this is The Time by Naomi Shihab Nye. Summer is the time I write to write. I tell myself this, and in winter especially. Summer comes, I want to tumble with the river over rocks and mossy dams. A fish drifting upside down. Slow accordions sweeten the breeze. The sanitary mattress factory says, sleep is life. Why do I think of 40 ways to spend an afternoon? Yesterday, someone said, it gets late so early. I wrote it down. I was going to do something with it. Maybe as a title, and as life is the poem. I'm looking at this poem, and I want to just use this right now for my mentor text. Think to yourself, what do you notice about the way she's using quotes and what people say? Take a moment, jot it down, pause the video. Think about, well, how is she using quotes? What is she doing with them? So what I notice here is she pulls out this quote from a mattress factory. It says, sleep is life. And then she also pulls out one that says, it gets late so early, just by someone. And she worked it in this poem. And she uses those to talk about some of the things that she's thinking about with time. It seems this idea of that sleep is life, how important sleep is, but this person doesn't want sleep at all. So shocking. And she uses this to understand things. So we're going to start looking at some of tuning into some of the things that we hear and see and look at. And I want us to really look at this. So here's something I want you to do. I want you to write really quick on the Padlet something you noticed about the way Naomi Shihab Nye uses or thinks about what she overhears, what she eavesdrops to others. And that Padlet is going to be in the links. I really want everybody to put in just something they notice about it. I put in another poem, and she doesn't use an express quote here. This is really interesting for the writer. A boy told me if he roller skated fast enough, his loneliness couldn't catch up to him. The best reason I ever heard for trying to be a champion. But I wonder tonight, pedaling hard down King William Street, as if it translates to bicycles. A victory to leave your loneliness panting behind you on some street corner, while you float free into a cloud of sudden azaleas, pink petals that have never felt loneliness, no matter how slowly they fell. I noticed this one, she doesn't use a quote, but she says, a boy told me if you roller skated fast enough. So these quotes can work two different ways. One can be direct quotes that you pull from things. The other can be, a boy told me if you roller skated fast enough. It could be something you see written. So here's what I want you to do. You've already written your Padlet, hopefully, or about to, thinking about how or why maybe Shihab Nye pulls out these quotes. Now, one thing I want you to do is I want you to spend some time. I want you to spend some time around your house today, tomorrow, And even now, listen or see some of the things that you've heard. Maybe you can go back and write a couple things. I was doing this yesterday, and I wrote a couple things from even Monday. I was just like, oh, I remember this quote. It was really interesting. So I'm just going to keep it in my notebook. And I challenge you to continually keep in your notebook when you hear something interesting from someone or from something or see something interesting, just to jot down that line. It doesn't have to be much. So here's my notebook. If you look at it, I didn't even do a lot here. I'm just writing quotes of things I hear, things I'm going to remember. And here's the next thing I want you to think about. I went into my writer's notebook today, and I didn't write poetry today. Today I wrote long. I wrote about when I said or heard these things. So the first one I was talking about was she's growing so fast. I heard this from my wife, and I just did a short long right here. So I want you guys to be writing for take about 35 minutes of just writing these stories in as much detail as possible. So normally I'd probably write a little bit more detail in these, but I wanted to give you guys a couple descriptions of it. So Adeline is growing so quickly. Courtney and I were sitting in her playroom, exclaiming how fast she was growing, learning, and developing. She was standing at her play table, pretending to steer a car, or maybe just moving the wheel. When she looks at us and smiles, she crawls over to Courtney and pulls herself up into a hug, then grabs a big chunk of hair. We laughed and couldn't begin to express how much she was grown and developed in the last month. She wasn't even crawling a month ago, and now we have to watch her like hawks, and she is so fascinated with climbing stairs. And I pulled another quote. Will I get in trouble? I think I will always remember the stress of going to the grocery store. There's so many new and unwritten rules now that always leave me asking the question, will I get in trouble? That was the question I heard. In fact, my wife was asking me that yesterday as she was preparing to pick up a few ingredients we were deficient in. Will I get in trouble if I don't have a mask? She asked as she was preparing to leave. In New York, it's now a fine. I told her it probably won't matter. But just to watch the crowds and see, I become acutely aware of others, trying to be respectful of their distance and comfortability while still trying to maintain our own needs. It seems we may need to get supplies from masks in the future. In the end, it is fortunate we used to snowboard so often and have an abundant, maybe gratuitous, supply of neck gaiters. And those are your responsibilities today. I want you to take time in your notebook to write down interesting lines or quotes that you are hearing or seeing. Just a couple phrases, 1-2 sentences max, not even that big, just interesting things you hear. And then I want you to go into your writer's notebooks and I want you to write long about when you heard those quotes. No poetry today. I want these to be your focuses as you go through and write in as much detail as possible these stories that come along with these quotes. And I wanted to center around those quotes. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you, everyone.